Welcome to the channel. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about CleanSpark and Bitcoin. We're going to talk about the daily chart, the weekly chart. We'll also take a look at the open options interest for CleanSpark, not for Bitcoin though. And then we'll talk about price targets on both of them, talk about when I'm going to add, when I'm going to trim. We'll have a quick look at some news. I don't think there's too much news out whilst I was away, so we'll talk about some other topics if there's no news available, and we'll take a quick look at what's coming up on the macro calendar. Other than that, you can check out my live portfolio over on eToro. The link for that is in the description down below. I'm just going to check up my portfolio progress for year to date here. Okay, so straight in, we're just going to look straight at the chart here. I marked where I had my trims, and then I marked a bunch of adding. I added way more aggressively than I did my trims, and that is because I'm ready to go risk on with the miners now. So, other than that, though, we had these key levels. We trimmed out the historical resistance here on the volume shelf as well. I should have probably trimmed more, but hindsight's great. I trimmed a little bit more on here as well, just because it was getting extended, and then the price here it didn't make a new high, so it was hesitating. On the pullback though, this 13.28 level was excellent, very strong level as well. I'd like to see that hold, although the pre-market today does look like it might want to break that. I was expecting a bit of a bounce on Monday, but we'll have to wait and see. The bull market band underneath this, though, is going to be really good support, and the volume shelf here, they're coinciding. The bull market band does look like it wants to flip bullish as well, which is excellent. I think it wants to flip bullish as a confirmation on the weekly as well, but we'll check that after. The RSI is neutral, so we've cooled off that, which is excellent. Love that. We did have some overbought alerts on the MACDX Plus, so it'd be nice to get those to cool off back to more neutral levels. The golden cross is confirmed, though. Excellent. And flow is kind of neutral. Let me just check my notes on this one, see what I put down. So, yeah. I wanted to mention that my trims weren't super aggressive because I did trim a lot of my positions in my portfolio, and I did end up with about 10% in cash. Now, I don't like holding cash. Cash in my account I consider kind of dead money, and I want it to be working for stuff. So I didn't just want to keep taking stuff out and having nowhere to put it. So I've started to layer in. I think I'm down to about 5% cash. As usual, they will do a quick little talk about my kind of price targets for CleanSpark. Now, I've mentioned a bunch of times I expect the Bitcoin price to be between 120 and 240. Now, I think it's going to be to the higher end of that spectrum, judging by how much momentum's come into Bitcoin at the moment, possibly even higher. Sorry, I got a bit of a crick in my throat today. But with Bitcoin at 100, I would put kind of $50 to $60 to be the fair price for CleanSpark. So we're massively trading under that right now, which is excellent. And around 240k Bitcoin, we should be around 160, 100 kind of dollars for Bitcoin for CleanSpark. Sorry, I'm all over the shop today. So there's plenty of upside in this one. A lot of people are concerned with the volatility on it. Look back through the history of any of the miners charts. They are always volatile. They love to pump, and then shake everyone out with some capitulation. I think at the minute, this sell-off's been way overdone. So I'm taking it as an opportunity to load the boat in my favor. But as well, I think people forget how fast the moves are in this. If we just measure from the bottom here, let's just go from the low here to the high. We did 119% in 44 trading days. Are we surprised when that wants to have a cool off? No. And even if we look over a shorter time frame, this low here to the high, 84% it made in what, 3-4 bars? That you can't be in these volatile assets and then panic when they are volatile. This is the nature of how they trade. They're fairly small market caps, and a lot of people looking at these, they'll be wanting to go risk on and then take money off and all that good stuff. So price targets for me with CleanSpark in general, I'd like to be mostly out of my position around $50. I did have it set at 45 as kind of my taking most of my position off the table, but I've lifted that because my expectation is for Bitcoin to top out at a much higher level than I was initially expecting. Let's have a quick look at the weekly though. Again, we've confirmed a golden cross here, and the bull market band is getting narrower and does want to flip. So I'm very bullish on the indicators for this. RSI's got loads of room to run when it wants to pump. Volume's been picking up again, excellent. Even if it's red, I don't really care about that. I just want to see volume on the up. Moves on low volume and not really to be trusted too much. So we are going to move on to the open options interest on this one, but I did want to show you this key level, red level to kind of 71, I think it is, on the daily chart. And then if we hop over quickly to our options data, we can see a lot of people looking at $20 as resistance. Not only is that psychological, but it is backed up by a fairly strong resistance level on the charts. So I'm not surprised people are picking that one out. And also the expected move is quite large. Again, that it's just a volatile stock. So what is interesting though is there's not much downside interest here. We do have a whopper level of support in kind of this $8 range. So I wouldn't expect price to ever get below that again. But again, if it did, I'm going to go very heavy on buying CleanSpark. Pushing it out a week. Again, a lot more interest to the upside on this one, especially over the short time frames, and kind of the support does move up a little bit to this $9 area. But again, I don't imagine price will be getting down there. That would be crazy in my opinion. Pushing out to January 2025 now, the Bitcoin cycle is expected to start ramping up, now. So that's something to bear in mind. If we put it out to January, though, we should be able to see what the big boys are thinking. If I pull this down, I'm sure we'll start seeing some strikes much higher up. Yep. So does this look like the big boys are worried about downside price action on this one in the future? No, it doesn't, does it? The expected move into the end of this year is quite large, topping out about $22. So excellent. That aligns with our plan. Something to bear in mind, these assets are going to be targets for a little bit of manipulation, not in kind of a malicious way. Well, it's a bit of a grey area, I guess, but the money people will be putting on it will be enough to move the price quite substantially. And then when they take it off and the capitulation starts and they're able to buy cheaper, Bob's your uncle. Great plan, really. So January 2026. Now I'd expect the crypto cycle to be over by this point, but we never know. Just being kind of curious and looking what's out there. There is a lot of expectation for fairly good upside from today's price, but like I said, I wouldn't take any long-term options in kind of that time frame on this one, just in case. Now that could change. It could be a different cycle to normal because of all the tailwinds coming in with countries and governments wanting to buy. We just don't know what the flip side of this market's going to be, but I wouldn't. It's not worth the gamble. Not in options. The risk is too high. Maybe just buy the underlying stock if you want to hold it a little bit longer. So we had the T12 halt last week. We did talk a lot about that in the video from last week. So if you want to find more about what we had to say on that, go and check that video out. There's no point in rehashing that, but we did see the price pump massively when they opened, which was excellent. If you didn't take profits, it was probably not the best idea, but we live on. But I did want to talk about, there's a guy called Back, I think that's how you say it, on X. He puts out a lot of really good data. He does a lot of macro stuff as well, so totally worth a watch. But I did want to point out that he does a lot of seasonality stuff, and his prediction was that the start of the month would be very red for CleanSpark, and it would improve through the month end. And he goes through all the historical data. So I thought that was quite interesting that we did it was almost like a false pump and then a fade out. So it will be more in line with his expectations. But I couldn't really find too much news, so maybe I'm clutching at straws there. It's not. I wouldn't trade based on this data, but it's interesting to know someone's point of view on that. Looking at Bitcoin today, we've had this little bit of a sell-off here, so it looks like it wants to roll over just purely based on the candle kind of formation here. It doesn't mean it has to, but other than that, though, the RSI is still quite hot. We know it can go higher, but it's good to have it cool off. You don't want to go all up because the moves will be more volatile and they'll look more like the miners, which isn't for everyone. But we also had overbought on MACDX Plus, so maybe sliding back a little bit is going to be warranted on this one. Now, if we do have a pullback in Bitcoin, guess what CleanSpark's going to do? It's going to pull back again. And interestingly enough, even though the chart only looks weak, we are already seeing CleanSpark fall off. So scroll down here, we can see more of the miners. Probably going to be buying some more miners today, I think. Mara, I don't think I added my full position back yet, so that's good. I'll be getting a good entry on that one again. But support to the downside on this one, it's going to be 78k and then kind of 73k. I don't care if it goes down to these levels. I will be buying more of the miners. I love the opportunity to buy cheap again. In an ideal world, it just kind of chops around this kind of orange line, gets its breath back, allows the indicators to cool off a little bit. I don't know if it's going to happen. We could pop again. There's so much news coming out of crypto. I'm actually surprised it's not up today, given the news over the weekend. But sometimes you can't predict how the market's going to digest stuff. Tesla, I think, is probably going to be stealing the limelight today with its regulatory hurdles being removed and all that stuff. But that's for Tesla Tuesday. We'll talk about that. I did want to move my chart up a little bit so I can see why I'm moving. My expectation is for price to go higher. It doesn't look too exciting from this point of view. So maybe just zoom out. It's going to look pretty squashed, but it's probably the easiest way to show you. So from a technical perspective, price sticking at kind of 160k and then up to 280k, they're going to be interesting levels for price to move between. I don't know if they're going to be the tops. Like Bitcoin often goes parabolic, and when it goes parabolic, these technical levels don't always mean anything. We can see that with Palantir a bit. It's just blasting through everything. Now it's going into the Fibonacci levels that are so far apart. It's just crazy to even think about it reaching some of those price targets, but it could do. So yeah, I just really wanted to show that the levels we're working with have changed a little bit, and I think we're going to be moving quite quickly next year between these two levels here, potentially even higher, but this is kind of where I would expect things to start to level off. I'm trying to be conservative, but it's when you quantify exactly how much money could come into Bitcoin this cycle, we could really start rolling, especially when people start getting FOMO and throwing everything in the kitchen sink at it. So that's something to bear in mind. Let's take a quick look at the weekly though. RSI, it's a little bit hot, but it could go higher if it wanted to. But on the daily, I would really prefer it to kind of cool off a little bit more. No real red flags on the MACDX Plus, which is good. And flow looks good. So weekly looks very healthy. Everything's going well. We're beating my expected moves on this one, which is, it's not always a good thing because it means we're having more volatility, which we're seeing in the miners. But maybe I'll start taking money from other positions if we start getting crazy too early and then adding it back, because you don't want to see it get. The further price gets away from its bull market bands, the more it's going to pull back at certain levels. When you get to a resistance, it's more likely to struggle to get over it. Moving on to a quick little look at the macro data today. We don't really have too much interesting. We've got a speech that won't listen to that. Housing market index, it's hardly riveting, is it? Foreign bond investment, snorefest, absolute snorefest. But tomorrow, I mean, it's put building permits preliminary as an important piece of data, but probably not. I mean, it's important to know the housing data, but it's kind of a dead zone at the minute. I'm waiting for it to not be a dead zone, so I expect that to be in 2025, not through Christmas. Who's going to be interested in buying houses and stuff through the Christmas period? It's very stressful. I bought a house in the Christmas period, and it kind of ruined Christmas a little bit with the stress. So can't blame anyone for not wanting to do that. So not too much in the data front for the next few days, but that's not necessarily a good thing because there's nothing to kind of perk the market up sometimes. That's a wrap. If you enjoyed this content, give it a like, share with your mum, your nan, your dad, your dog, and I will see you tomorrow for Tesla Tuesday. That's probably going to be an exciting one as well.